On behalf of Scared Entertainment, I would like to welcome you to the first episode of the Paranormal with Pierce. I'm your host, Pierce Horvath, and episode 1 will talk about the idea of, is this normal? So, welcome. Thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate this. This series has been a long time coming, only because this is a good reason as to why Scared Entertainment even exists. Essentially, I have experienced a multitude of paranormal experiences, whether you want to just call them apparition spirits, otherworldly dimensional creatures, demons, ghosts, whatever you want to call it. Believe me, I've got a story for it. And with that being said, I also want to discuss how the belief in these particular things, and it's not even just a belief, it's the fact that the experiences prove their belief. But essentially the belief in the supernatural when it comes to the Roma people and their culture. So I want to use this particular series as the place where I can kind of discuss these things, however sensitive they may be, as well as how the supernatural and the Romani people are kind of hand in hand. So, in particular, with each episode, I'll be illustrating a very rough expressionistic type piece that illustrates an instance or a particular instance that I've experienced, only because a lot of cases, a lot of these instances occurred during what's called sleep paralysis, or the majority of those times I wasn't out here with a camera thinking, oh goody, Billy Bob, who's 200 years dead, is coming around, let me get out the iPhone. No. So now you guys get to see some artistic renderings of my spooky life, which is cool, nah? I guess. So, that being said, let's get started talking about my experiences. So, I've always seen things from a child, and my family all down the line have experienced something paranormal, whether here at home or even outside of the house. But the occurrences kind of really took a fast track and became more frequent when I was a junior in college at DePaul. That was back in 2016, 2017. And ever since then, luckily recently it stopped, which I'm very happy about, because yeah, it gives Scared Entertainment some great content to bring out to you guys at 3 o'clock in the morning when you're looking for that spooky fix, which, I mean, hey, I'm glad to be the person that you're coming to for that. But at the same time, living through it is a whole nother bag. So, that being said, I'm glad that this is all kind of took a turn for the better. So now, when these are all said and done and all my occurrences have been discussed, we can talk about ponies and daffodils just as much as we'd love to here at Scared Entertainment. Anyways, right now I'm kind of just establishing the room setting, which is extremely important because the majority of these experiences all happen in my room. Usually again around like nighttime, but then again I've been through practically every room in the house and something has happened to some extent. Now, to give you some background on the house, my house is over 120 years old. We have the oldest standing building in the neighborhood, period. So with that being said, there's going to be some history and there's going to be some haunts. So whether that's a blessing in disguise, that's up for debate. At least here at Scared Entertainment, it's wonderful because it gives you all some more stuff to listen to and, you know, get your your usual spook fix for. So, my grandparents have been living here for at least about 40 years now, and everybody has experienced something spooky to some extent here. What it is, we'll be discussing further on into the show. But in general, outside of my own family, the Romani culture heavily revolves around the supernatural and these other worldly feelings, because although the majority of us are Catholic or at least Christian, especially here in America, we cannot deny our connection to the supernatural, just because, as stereotypical as it sounds, there is this extrasensory ability that we all have to some extent that allows us to feel things and to experience things that the majority of people don't. And I guess that makes us special to some extent. It definitely gives us some amazing stories to tell to our friends and family, that's for sure. And later on, I mean, even as we go on with this series, I'm going to be discussing not only just my own experiences, but some accounts in folklore even, because the majority of the folklore that the Romani people have, that's at least documented, the majority of them all include to some extent what is referred to as a devil or a demon, which in Romanes is translated to Beng or Bengoro, or like now we hear a lot about a character referred to as a mulo. Now, that can go to be defined in multiple different renditions. Some sources or some people believe that to be just straight up ghosts. Some believe that to be spirits, the undead. But once you get more into the roots of this all, the idea of vampires and zombies, I have not heard this word used in regards to werewolves, but definitely vampires and the undead and ghosts for sure. So the majority of the folklore that comes from our people is heavily rooted in the concept of these supernatural evil creatures. So now that the room is kind of slowly but surely being built together, I'd say that the majority of what I've experienced is what is referred to as sleep paralysis. What is sleep paralysis, you may ask? Well, it is an occurrence between the stages of wakefulness and sleep. It's a feeling of consciousness without the ability to move or speak. Now, for me in particular, the sleep paralysis that I've experienced on multiple occasions comes in multiple different flavors, or a combination of flavors. Now, according to my sources, there are 3 major categories. There are intruder hallucinations, so somebody who kind of comes in the room that obviously isn't invited, or you may not be able to recognize. And then there also is the chest pressure hallucination, or the incubus hallucination. Now, this one I've experienced as well. This has been depicted on multiple occasions by many fine artists throughout history, and we can definitely go into some detail on that later on episodes, but I just wanted to mention that. And then there also is the vestibular motor hallucination, which is feelings of movement such as flying or out-of-body sensations, again to be discussed in further episodes. But to kind of give you a preface, I have experienced all of these to some extent. Now, what brings on sleep paralysis? Well, essentially, sleep researchers believe that what can be the source of these particular instances is increased stress throughout the day, lack of quality sleep, sleep apnea or sleep-related disorders, anxiety disorders, and PTSD. Now, if you have a mixture of those things, you're kind of setting yourself up for disaster at that point. As a child, I was diagnosed with sleep apnea, grew out of that. PTSD, increased stress, these are things that we all, to some extent, experience at some point in our lives. But I remember in particular when this was occurring with me, I was under extreme stress. I mean, college. There's your excuse right there. There's your explanation. College. So that being said, it's pretty tough. But again, when it first started happening with me, it wasn't something that I was necessarily like, oh no, it's this. I had no clue what it was until I did my research and found out that this is something that now there are some conflicting numbers on this. So again, take what you want from this. Now, some people say between 25 and 50% of Americans have experienced this. And then also I have read that some people are saying that only 8% of Americans have experienced this. Whether you believe it's 8 or 50, that's up to you. But to some extent, a good chunk of people have experienced this in their lifetime, and it is scary. That is for sure. So, we're almost at the point that our little man starts to show up. Outside of the sleep paralysis sensation, there have been multiple cases where I've seen things, even when I was wide awake, just grabbing a glass of water or something like that. Now that I think about that, there's a few instances that you guys will love, and I cannot wait to talk about because they are creepy. They are extremely, extremely creepy. And eventually, one of the episodes that I would like to be discussing a particular supernatural entity about is the Shmerka. That's in particular one of the Romane creatures that even from young, all the Romane kids would be completely afraid of. What that is, we'll find out later on as well. I know this is a huge teaser, but essentially I gotta give you guys this. There's a little bit of something to keep you going. So, now that we're starting to actually get into the focal point of our piece, the majority of the entities that present themselves to me all come in these blacker than black forms. What do I mean when I say that? Essentially, have you heard of there's this new paint, it's called Banta Black, where 99% of the light that is shown on this particular paint is absorbed by the paint. So when you look at it, it just looks like a void. Completely nothing. And this is what these particular entities look like to me. Now, this one comes in about the shape of a boy. Like I would say, about maybe 10, 12. No clothes. And it usually has these long fingers. And this kind of bushy hair to some extent. And a lot of times it's just standing, but then in some cases it's moving or it kind of comes as a flash, but I know it's that. I know it's it. Because again, I don't know if it's a him, it's a her, it's an it. But it kind of has this boyish form. And it'll only stay for a few seconds, but then it disappears. And when it's there, it's almost like a vacuum. I notice the room becomes like a vacuum. And when that happens, kind of like my only go-to in these instances, because again, it's not like I'm over here, I'm I'm a Ghostbuster and I got the whole shebang, the whole backpack set up and everything. I don't have that. The only thing that I have in my arsenal, and it's proven potent because 100% of the time it has given me the results I'm looking for. I resort to prayer. Again, I come from a Catholic background. The majority of Roma are at least Christian to some extent. And whether you want to believe it or not, it works. This is why I constantly find myself praying to St. Michael, because believe me, that man has helped me in multiple instances, in particular when it comes to this sucker. And it's not even that I'm essentially afraid. It's just the simple fact that it's happened so many times that it became an annoyance. That's something to say. Yeah, I don't know, let's just call this Bob. Yeah, Bob keeps showing up. Yeah, we need him out. And I mean, just kind of like in some cases now, like I'm adding like this tiny little bit of like this highlight here, because in some cases I kind of get the instance of where the face would be and kind of like where the skin separates. But again, this thing is blacker than black, and it just like now it sucks up any little bit of light, so there's no chance of essentially making a face out of any of this. And when I think back to this, and I think back to the whole, well, is this a ghost? Is this some kind of other dimensional creature? Is this a demon? Most likely it's the latter of it all, because doing some own research outside of the whole sleep paralysis and taking this from the scientific point of view, fallen angels that have been removed from grace are devout of light. They turn down their light that was given to them by God. So it would make sense that these particular demons, or these devils, as some people refer to them as, are devout of light, and should even like now a flashlight be shown on them, if you ever could even have that happen. No light bounces off of them to express a form, which is extremely terrifying, because I mean, even in like the dark, you're still able to make out some of these particular forms. Like even now when I'm creating this piece, it's super dark in my room, but this thing is darker than the dark. And it blows my mind, because after the second or third time that Bob here showed up, I was already kind of like, okay, something's up. Something has to be done, because, I gotta figure out what this is. But through further research, I've come to my own conclusion. And again, I would love to hear your opinions in the comments. Let's keep this civil, because again, this is a personal experience. And for those of us who are going to be in the comment section who are agreeing, or maybe have some similar experiences, I hope that we're able to create a open space that is safe enough for us to discuss these particular instances, because they're very sensitive. This isn't something that necessarily, like I said, I'm not over here that's like, well, oh boy, I was visited last night. What a gas. No. This is for some people traumatic. And I hope that when we discuss these particular cases in the comments and with others, that there is a level of respect that is given to each and every one of us, so that we can all maybe help each other through this. Because luckily, through me working through some like stress relief as well as fixing my sleep schedule, I was able to kind of hone this down. But even then, I still had some instances, even in wakefulness, normal day stuff. But yeah, luckily Bob has not made an appearance as of lately. And with that being said, my friends, that is the piece. thank you all so much for listening. It was a joy to get to talk to you guys today, and I hope that you'll be around for episode 2. Thanks for watching.